20 breweries, 12 days, New Zealand South Island. Let's go. Woo-wee, what's going on everyone? Donovan Kelly here, back with another episode. It's been a while. I was very fortunate enough to have my parents come down here to New Zealand. Massive South Island tour. It turned out really well. They like beer, I really like beer too, and outside of seeing so many amazing spots on New Zealand South Island, we went to a lot of places that make beer. We're just gonna fire through all 20 breweries here. I got a couple photos, a little bit of footage, gonna be quick before we get to the end where I have a few takeaways. So let's get rolling. Brewery number 1. Brew Moon in Amberley. Now, a lot of you guys had told me to go to this brewery. We've seen them at beer festivals. They did not disappoint whatsoever. This is the first brewery on a road trip. They opened at like 4 o'clock. We showed up at 4:05. There was already like 8 people out on the patio, 4 or 5 jugs of beer. Food was coming out. It's like, this is a really good local spot. Beer I had, Wolf of Washington, American Pale Ale. Absolutely fantastic. Three Boys in Christchurch. God, this place just smells so good. You walk in and it's like, okay, yeah, I know for a fact that they're brewing it behind that little bar area. They might have just been mashing, but it smelled amazing. I like this place. You grab your flight. I like going upstairs and just overlooking this kind of oldish factory kind of brewery. It's some natural light coming in from up above, and yeah, you just get to see the brewers work, and beers are pretty tasty. I think I tried my first West Coast red IPA here, which is really interesting. A lot of that American hop that you get in a West Coast IPA, but like more darker caramel and toffee kind of finish. I don't know how common they are, but if you do stumble upon one, order one. Eruption Brewing in Littleton. Now, I don't think I've ever really mentioned Littleton, which is so silly because I love this town. It's right beside Christchurch. You just take this tunnel underneath the mountain and this cool little port town, not very big, very small downtown, super easy to walk, and there's a brewery. In my mind, the brewery is kind of the centerpiece to everything. They got a few patios. Both times we went straight up to the roof and pretty much had the whole place to ourselves and just really cool views. They must have just run out of a bunch of beer. They had a very limited selection. Pilsner was great. Food was really good too. And just the overall atmosphere, I don't know. There's something about Eruption I just really love. You gotta go and see it if you're in Christchurch. You really do. This is a place that's pretty well known for their pizzas. Really cool restaurant, really neat brewery. Lots of wood, lots of nice like black metal everywhere. Pretty renowned for their milk stout. And I gotta say, it's probably one of the best I've tried in New Zealand. We all had dinner there. Everyone had a great time. Beers were fantastic. Food was really good. You gotta hit up Castles. This next one I thought for sure brewed their own beer, but I don't think they do actually. So 19 breweries in 20 days. But this is a fantastic craft beer tap room, craft beer bar, whatever you want to call it, in Christchurch, where they are serving so much delicious brews, where they got like 20 tap handles from so many different local breweries, North, South Island. Hell of a spot. Weasels Ripped My Flesh. I thought for sure that was their beer, but I think it's Altitude Brewing. That was definitely like the best beer name that we saw there. Collaboration with Moon Unit Brewing. We left Christchurch and went down to Mount Cook to walk the Hooker Valley Track before making our way back out to the coast. And we got to see a little bit more of the very unique town of Oamaru. We thoroughly enjoyed the Steampunk Museum, and it was just up the road from Scott's Brewery. Now this is a place that's beautifully presented right on the water with a huge patio and just a fantastic interior. Heck of a spot to grab a bite, and the beer is super solid. Going down to Dunedin. First spot we hit up was Noisy Brewing. If you guys have seen other videos, I've featured Noisy Brewing a couple times now, especially in the Dunedin guide video and the top 10 craft beer places in New Zealand. They're just still making really good beer. I think all the stuff on their menu is all brand spanking new. The Where's Jerry IPA. I love a good beer that has a great name. Plus, they had another beer that I want to talk about, but I'm going to save that for the end because that's one of the points. Emerson's Brewery. Yeah, we were walking around Dunedin and it felt like that particular Friday or Saturday night was kind of empty, not very busy. We went over to Emerson's and it's like, oh, okay, well, here's where all the people are. Yes, they are owned by Lion, but they still make pretty damn good beer, and they got a lot of funds to make pretty awesome place down there in Dunedin. Steamer Basin. How cool is that? Just like Noisy, I featured them a few times already, but going back for probably the last time in New Zealand, just one last little wow to what they've done there. Truly is just a beautiful spot. This heritage building is just so impressive. Like, just one of my favorite spots to ever have a brewery. It's a good one. For the fourth and final brewery in Dunedin, we did go to Spades. Now, I'll be honest, we didn't have a beer there. We really just checked out their gift shop because people wanted to buy some souvenirs that said Dunedin on it, and it was just impossible to do that over the weekend there. Like, everything was closed. I don't really understand. So we didn't do the tour. We didn't have a beer there. Still counting it. Leaving Dunedin, making our way to Milford Sound, we spent a night in Anau. A lot of people are saying it's Arno. There's an R in there. Either way, they got this place called the Black Dog Pub, and it's basically the tap room for Fjordland's Beer Company. We have been here before. I think it was very limited in terms of selection, 3, maybe 4 beers. Super solid hazy, but a really impressive English style IPA there. Got a shirt. It's just a nice place. I like that one a lot. Okay, the next day is a fun day. When you wake up super early, go and do Milford Sound and just be wowed by that. Super glad we got to go again. And after Milford Sound, one hell of a drive to Queenstown, explored the city a little bit. God, it was hot that day. Made our way over to Searchlight Brewing. Altitude was closed, unfortunately, but we still had some really good beer at Searchlight. Iggy Hop, West Coast IPA, really good beer. Got me a little new hat. But that day was not over because we still had to drive to Wanaka, which is about an hour away. And as soon as we got settled in our accommodations, got settled in the motel, immediately went to Rhyme and Reason. You are coming home with me. I love me a good hoodie. And I'm just also, in general, a very big sucker for brewery merchandise. Beers are fantastic. I really like the big deck energy. It's just very entertaining when you say it in a New Zealand accent. Right across the street, go to Ground Up Brewing. Just really good food. Finally got to try it. And the Kiwi Pale Ale is just such an easy drinking, fresh, delicious ale. I love it. Leaving Wanaka. This is like new roads for us. This was pretty exciting actually, because from Wanaka to Host, it was one of the most beautiful drives I think I've ever taken in my life. But once you're there, then you get to drive up the West Coast. Interesting vibes on the West Coast. A little different, not gonna lie. But we did make our way up to Greymouth, and we went back to Monteith's. I was told that they don't even brew beer here. They still have a lot of tanks. Yes, they're owned by Heineken, but it's kind of a staple on the West Coast. And Monteith's, you know, you can buy their beer at almost every single Countdown and liquor store across New Zealand. Apparently they do a really good tour. Finally tried the Monteith's Original. Not a bad beer. We went all the way up to Westport to check out a new brewery that we've never been to before, which was Short Jaw Brewing. And actually, I'll feature them in this video. I really like Short Jaw. Sounded like they had kind of a cool story, actually. They are in a building that's kind of always been the brewery in Westport, which is kind of neat to me. And they've done it up really nice. Small little patio. It's right beside this municipal chambers or something. I kind of like the vanilla IPA, Vanilla Sun IPA. I just feel like you don't get a whole lot of vanilla flavor in lighter bodied beers. See it, vanilla porters and stouts and things like that, but I like this one. I bought a can and I've waited till now to open it. Oh yeah. I've become a bigger fan of vanilla since I've been here. Moving on. Back to Nelson, got to unwind for a few days and enjoy some of the local spots here, which include Sprig and Fern. Now, I've tried to go to the brewery, but I just really don't think that they want you to go to the brewery. They have so many tap rooms set up, especially like around the Tasman Bay. I think they even have a few up in Wellington. Either way, I think a lot of them serve really good food. They obviously have all the Sprig and Fern beer on tap, and it's just always a pretty good time. They serve big ass 20-ounce pints, so I like that, the proper Canadian pint. Went back to Adeline, guess what? They still make really good beer. I'm pretty sure they got a new fan. Really good West Coast IPAs. I just can't get enough of that. We whipped around the bay to Motueka, checked out Townsend. Now Townsend, the brewery's right there, but they don't have a tap room, but right next door is Toad Hall, and they serve food, and then obviously you can buy a lot of their beer on tap. Yeah, it's pretty much the tap room for Townsend. They make some pretty good beer. Pilsner was out of this world. Now, Mapua is a lovely little town nestled between Nelson and Motueka, and the wharf has this really lovely mix of old and new shops, bars, and restaurants, with Golden Bear Brewing in the heart of the action. Owners are extremely friendly. This is a great spot to grab a bite to eat, listen to live music, and try out their beer. Now, the Free House is situated in an old church with an amazing patio, and it's really regarded as one of the top craft beer bars in the country. Now, since COVID, they've started their own nano brewery called the Flavortorium, and you can find one or two of those beers among the 13 taps that are constantly rotating. Hop Federation. Now, Hop Federation makes some absolutely fantastic beer. They brew it out of Motueka. They used to be in Wanaka, just up the road, but now they're in Motueka. They have a tap room at the Wanaka Hotel. They kind of share the tap room space at Toad Hall in Motueka, but they have a new kind of tap room area in downtown Nelson, right on Trafalgar Street. White Stouts. I do recall having about 3 or 4 in Canada, but since we've been down here, the first one we had was from Rhyme and Reason, and it was just absolutely to die for. The second one was in Blenheim at Renaissance Brewing. That one was like 10 out of 10. And this most recent one that we just had at Noisy Brewing Company, again, is just so goddamn delicious. So if you don't know what a white stout is, a beer that has a lighter profile such as this, it's not white, it's definitely more golden, but you go and you smell it and the aroma is just like a delicious kind of chocolatey coffee stout. And your brain's just going, what the heck? That's not what that should smell like. And that's not what that should taste like. But they all taste super freaking amazing. Not getting very technical here, but if you see a white stout and you've never tried one, go and try a white stout. Get a 20-ounce Canadian pint of it. You will never not be able to find a hazy, a New England IPA, a New England Pale Ale, a very tropical, citrusy, juicy beer in New Zealand. They're just absolutely everywhere. One of my family members tried to taste every single one of them in New Zealand. She got pretty close, but I don't think she got to them all. But if that's your kind of beer, you're pretty much in hazy heaven down in this little part of the world. And the final thing, I don't think I've ever mentioned it. I've been reading this pretty much like since day 2, since we got off the plane here. Pursuit of Happiness is a absolutely fantastic, I don't know, magazine. It's kind of a guide. It doesn't really lay out where every place is, but it is fantastic insight into the craft beer scene in New Zealand. Well, that was a blast. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this little brewery tour around the South Island. Really appreciate it. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.